Going on, might let you out early. We'll see how things go. Okay. Parashat Ekev. There's a lot of great points in this week's parasha that is worth touching on, of course. The first one I wanted to discuss is the very beginning where it talks about Haya Ekev Tishmeun. And the language of Ekev means a heel. There's a mitzvot that a lot of times people don't pay attention to, that we don't regard as necessarily so important. They really make a big difference, and they could spell the difference between succeeding, light versus darkness, mamash. I'll tell you, this is a true story, that the Rav of Netivot, the chief rabbi of the city of Netivot, which is in Eretz Israel, his name is Rav Pinchas Kohen Shalita. And he says over the story that he personally experienced. He was once invited to Ramat Gan. Ramat Gan is not that close to Netivot. Netivot is in the south. Ramat Gan is more central, north Israel. And he was invited under unfortunate circumstances because it was a shiva. A person passed away at a very young age, very unexpectedly. And it was a very big tsar. And his nahug was actually in the, you could say, the Sfaradi community. It was people that, when it comes to Shiva, with Sfaradim especially, everybody comes together, a lot of respect, big seudot, and they didn't really have space in their homes. The homes in Israel, by and large, are not so big to host that many people, so they set up a tent in the outside, and they hosted a lot of people, and everybody was sitting and eating, and there, and the Rab was invited to come and say Divrei Torah. And he looked at the crowd, and the crowd, by and large, was not really religious. Maybe one or two stood out as kippot. Everybody else was chiloni, was secular, but at the same time, masoti. They had the concept of a shiva, the concept of kadishim, and all of that was something that was obviously very important to them. And they had enough knowledge of Torah to invite the Rav to speak. Now, he spoke about something that they needed to hear. He said, Rabotai, I want you to know, and he said this really meant it from the heart. He said, this big seudah that you're making, it really doesn't do much for the person that passed away. It's very nice that you're all sitting and eating, but for the niftar, and the niftar, the one that's deceased, he's not benefiting from any of this. In order, now you have to understand, he explains to them, right after a person passes away, he's going through like the toughest period. Imagine a person in this world, right? If you had to move from one location to another, it's usually a whirlwind. It's very complicated to move, and you don't feel settled, and you feel uncomfortable, and that's from one place in this world to another place in this world. Imagine a person who's moving from olam hazeh to olam haba, and in that means that there's going to be din shel mala, there's judgment, and he's sitting there, and he does a court case, any court case a person goes to, even if he's not guilty, right? He's just in the court. It's pressure, and it's difficult, and it's a very sensitive time for the niftar. And one of the great things you could do, and this is what he told them, is you can give the niftar, the deceased, you could give the person who died, matanot. You could send them presents from here. But just having the seudah is not that. Everybody should take upon themselves mitzvot, and small mitzvot. And you could be sending gifts to this individual who passed away young, who sorely needs it in Shamayim. And he spoke about this a few minutes. After he finished, he was about to sort of wrap things up and leave. And he sees a woman walk over to him. And the first thing he notices is this woman was far from religious, very, you could call it, not tsanua in her dress. She didn't look modest at all. And she comes over to the Rav with a lot of sincerity, though. And she says to the Rav, Kevod Rav, you spoke about giving presents to the niftar. I want to introduce myself. My husband is the brother of the deceased. And I really wanted to send him presents. What can I do to send him presents from here? And the Rav thinks for a moment. He's like, what am I going to tell her? I'm going to tell her to dress b'tzniut, to dress modestly. She doesn't know from her right or left about modesty. I can't tell her such a thing. So he thought quickly and he says, I'll tell you what you should do. Just do netilat yadayim. Netilat yadayim, everybody knows, even in Hebrew, the Israelis, regular Israelis, they heard of netilat yadayim. So she's like, netilat yadayim, kilu lishtof ta yadayim. She just thought, like, wash your hands under the sink. He said, look, the way halacha does netilat yadayim, explained it to her. When you wake up in the morning, the first thing you do is you take a cup and you wash your hands 3 times, and he showed it to her. He showed her, you do once, and then you do another one, and then he showed her how to do it. And then every time that you eat bread, you also have netilat yadayim, but you have to remember it's a little bit different than this one. Both of them have a bracha on netilat yadayim, both of them you have to dry your hands. But the first netilah of the morning, you got to do 1, 1, 1, and the other netilah you do 3, and then you do another 3. He explained to them until she got it. He explained it to her. He says, you do netilat yadayim, and that's going to be the thing you take upon yourself. And then sort of to make sure 100%, he says, and Arav, and if I do netilat yadayim, that's going to send gifts to my husband's brother? And he says, yes, absolutely. It's going to be a big gift to your husband's brother. It's a big zechut. She said, okay. And she went back home, and she started talking to her husband, who's met the brother. He says, why don't we do this? This is a small thing. It's not a big thing. Biktana. It's a tiny thing we could do, and we could be sending your brother gifts in Shamayim. Let's take this upon ourselves. We'll do netilat yadayim, and we'll do it in the morning. We'll do it every time we eat bread. It's not such a big deal. We don't have to become religious. You know, in Israel, it's like a scary thing. The most difficult thing for them to do is not even to keep Shabbat. The most difficult thing to do is to wear a kippah. Why? Because it's a huge statement. It's a huge statement. You just like basically separated from the rest of your family, and you've ostracized yourself. And what do we do to you to offend you that you now disconnected? It's like a whole thing. So they said, "Listen, netilat yadayim. It's simple. It's not gonna. It's not heavy. It's not difficult. Why don't we take it upon ourselves?" The husband thought about it. He says, "You know what? It was an inspiring time when, unfortunately, when people lose a loved one, there's more inspiration, more closeness to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. At least that's good. But halevai, it should be before there should be tragedies." And he said, yes, you know what, let's take this upon ourselves. And sure enough, fast forward, 1.5 years later, the Rav Pinchas Cohen, was leaving his lishka, his chamber in Netivot, and he sees a woman there. And the woman was fully dressed, tzanua. She says, do you remember me? He says, no, I'm sorry, I don't know who you are. She says, do you remember 1.5 years ago, you were in Ramat Gan, and there was a shiv'ah, and it was a person that passed away young, and you spoke about matanot. He said, yeah. I'm that woman that came over to you. Oh, yes, of course, I remember, 100%, yes. And he's thinking to himself, wow, Darwin must have been right. She went mamash from looking like a monkey. The monkey was more tsanua than her. And now she's, wow, how could it be in such a short period of time, everything changed? And he's like looking at like she's totally charedi. She's dressed and she has a mitpachad lemehadrin, like the most high level of everything. Couldn't believe it. She says, I want to tell you what happened, what transpired in the last 1.5 years. A few weeks after the Shiv'ah, we wanted to recuperate, and it was a good opportunity. We decided that we needed a break. We wanted to go on vacation. So we, of course, did our netilat yadayim on a daily basis. We were very careful about it. And we said, where should we vacation? We want to go. Israel has a lot of places that you could go to. They decided they're going to go on a camping trip to India. In different areas in India that you could go camping and sightseeing and different things in the out there in the wilderness. So they went, and one of the days they decided to take, typical day, took bread, a little bit of water with them, and they started traveling. They got lost. They got lost on the way, and the water ran out. They still had the bread. The good thing was they weren't exactly so thirsty, so it wasn't such a problem. But on the way, they encountered a field with mushrooms, a whole bunch of different types of mushrooms. And it's very dangerous. You don't want to mess with mushrooms. Like, it could be poisonous, it could be not. So they sort of knew their stuff. They investigated. They said this type of mushroom is safe. It's not one of the harmful ones. And they even tested it. Okay. The problem is mushrooms doesn't go alone. You have to have mushrooms. You're not going to just eat mushrooms. You have it with bread. And they had bread. The only thing is they didn't have water. So the husband looks at his wife. She's like, well, up until now we kept netilat yadayim before we had. I'm not going to go ahead and I'm not going to break my Netilat Yadayim Kabbalah, my acceptance of this mitzvah. As the husband's looking at her, he said, what? Are you kidding me? We accepted the mitzvah, but like, what are we supposed to do? We're supposed to starve? We're supposed to just be hungry the whole day? I'm going to eat the bread without Netilat Yadayim. You could do whatever you want. She says, you know what? You go eat the bread. I don't care. I'm not eating the bread. I have principles. I don't want to go ahead and do it. So it turned out that the husband sat down and he ate the bread and he had the mushrooms and everything. And she just sat there and did not eat with him. Oh, a few minutes passed and it turns out that they made a big mistake. Those mushrooms weren't exactly safe. And the next thing he knows, he's feeling terribly sick and he realizes this is a big problem. He's in a few minutes, it's just getting worse and worse. And they called their friends who knew how to contact the ambulances. Until the ambulance came, it took basically another 45 minutes. This is India. This is not exactly New York City. Maybe New York City is the same, I don't know. But it took a while. By the time it even came, he already lost consciousness. They rushed him to the hospital. And maybe the hospitals are a little bit second world, third world. They had to do these constant cleaning out of the systems. For like weeks, he was just lying there in bed, and it wasn't so simple that he was bichlal going to even survive. Luckily, after a few weeks, he started building up his health a little bit more, enough that he was able to be sent to hospitals in Israel. They were able to travel back, and in Israel, he was also in the hospital for some significant period of time, and they also gave him a lot of medicines and different things. End of story, he ended up recuperating. When he recuperated, he turned to his wife, he says, you know, we both took this mitzvah upon ourselves, but you took it all the way, and I stopped. And you who took it all the way, you protected the mitzvah, and the mitzvah therefore protected you. There's got to be something to this, and it's obviously not a coincidence. I want to look more into Torah and mitzvot. And they went to an Arachim seminar, which is a seminar where they have really amazing Rabbanim that come and they present the Torah and the various things that, unfortunately, very sadly, like if Arachim was in control of the public schools, Mashiach would have been here yesterday. Like it would have been. It's so sad because what they're teaching these kids. Did I ever tell you? I think I told you the story with Avshach. That one of the close students, he noticed on a daily basis, Avshach would always try his best to have breakfast before 8 o'clock. And if he wasn't able to have breakfast at 8 o'clock, he wouldn't eat until 8:30. And he says, Arav, and it was a situation that it became very clear, like it was 8:05, 8:10, and they were at a Seudah. Arav, why isn't the Rav eating? It's not nice. No. I have to eat. The Rav tried to push him off. He's like, Arav, I see something's off. He's like, how do you want me to eat? From 8 o'clock to 8:30 is the time that all the kids are going to public schools in Israel, and they're not even teaching them Shema Yisrael. They're taking them to spiritual gas chambers. They're not teaching them Torah. And I'm supposed to go ahead and eat during this time. He couldn't eat. On a daily basis. He wouldn't eat from 8 o'clock in the morning to 8:30 breakfast, because that's the time they're taking them to the concentration camps of spirituality. They don't teach them anything with Torah, these kids in public schools. Nothing of Torah. And even when they pretend to teach them Torah, they twist the Torah in a way that nobody, of course you're not going to like Torah, because you twist it in a way that represents it in a complete opposite of what it actually is. So it's a very sad reality. Arachim, what they do is they teach them what they never heard in their lives. It's an amazing thing. And they sometimes they're 30 years old. You think they live in the state of Israel, 30 years old, 40 years old. They'll know about Moshe Rabbeinu. They'll know about the David HaMelech. Who was David HaMelech? They'll know. They don't know anything about anybody. They know Herzl. They heard of Herzl. They heard of Ben Gurion, but they have no idea who Moshe Rabbeinu is. You tell them Yoshua bin Nun. Mize Yoshua bin Nun. You tell them, it depends which areas. You could talk to them about any of the Nevi'im. You talk to them about Shmuel HaNavi. Shmulik. Oh, I know Shmulik. He's the barber. No, Shmuel HaNavi. Mize Shmuel HaNavi. They don't know. They mamash don't know. So these Arachim seminars are amazing. They went to an Arachim seminar, and they started telling him proofs and history and knowing about what it means to be Jewish. And they were so enamored. They realized, like, this is where the truth is at. We haven't heard any of this. We don't know any of this. We live in the state of Israel. We don't know any of this. And they were chozer b'tshuva on such a level. And she's telling this over to the Rav, and she says, now, Harav, 3 times a week in our home in Ramat Gan, there's shiurei Torah. We're not only do we keep Torah, we're teaching Torah to others, Baruch Hashem. Unbelievable. All of this emerged from what? A small mitzvah. A person accepted upon themselves Netilat Yadayim. Can't imagine like such a small mitzvah. And it's able to go and to revolutionize not just one family, it's one family for the rest of generations, and together with an entire community, all their circle of friends, the whole thing changed because of the acceptance of one mitzvah. That means that even when we perform Netilat Yadayim, it's not a small thing, it's a massive thing that has the capacity to make a huge difference in the entire world. So this is the greatness of what it means to do a mitzvah, to appreciate. And a person, let's say, who was not so careful about Netilat Yadayim, this is a great opportunity to take something small upon themselves. He doesn't exactly wake up in the morning and do immediately Netilat Yadayim. He goes around, take upon himself Netilat Yadayim. Before he eats, to have kavanah in the Netilat Yadayim. If a person already does it, to focus and to say the bracha with intent. These small things that we do on a daily basis, they really, really go a long way when we do them right. Now, that's regarding Ekev. I wanted to now mention a different thing. Also, an extremely, I think this thing is a diamond. Mamash a diamond. This Dvar Torah, I heard it, I almost jumped up in joy. I was so happy about this Dvar Torah. This is sent over by Rav Shlomo Miller. Incredible Dvar Torah. What does he say? In this week's Parashat, one of the things that's mentioned is Ma Hashem Elokecha Sho'el Meimach. Moshe Rabbeinu turns to Am Yisrael, and if you read the pasuk on its very literal level, it seems very condescending. Moshe Rabbeinu says, what is Hashem asking from you already? Ki im le'ir'a et Hashem Elokecha. Hashem is only asking you to fear Him, to love Him, to keep His Torah, to keep His mitzvot. Like literally all of these lines, these two words, are sfarim, are entire books of how you accomplish Yirat Hashem, Ahavat Hashem, Shmirat Torah, Mitzvot. Go look up the Rambam in Sefer Mitzvot. How many mitzvot do we have? In Moshe Rabbeinu, 2 words. He says, what's the big deal? So the Gemara asks this question. The Gemara says, what do you mean what's a big deal? Fearing Hashem is not a big deal? Of course it's a big deal. So the Gemara says, no, it's not such a big deal. For Moshe Rabbeinu, it's not such a big deal. For Moshe Rabbeinu, Yirat Hashem is simple. So that's the Gemara ends. In Mita Zutartahi. Klape Moshe Mita Zutartahi. For Moshe Rabbeinu, it's a small thing. And the Mefarshim all ask a very obvious question, but Moshe Rabbeinu is not talking to himself. It's very nice for himself, it's a small thing. But for the rest of Am Yisrael, it's very difficult. It's true, you're Moshe Rabbeinu. But what about the rest of Am Yisrael? For them it's hard, and you're talking to them, you're not talking to yourself. So how can you say, Ma Hashem Elokecha, what Hashem is already asking from you? He's asking a lot. Say the Mefarshim, one of the answers given, beautiful answer, Moshe Rabbeinu, of course for him it's small. But what is he saying to Am Yisrael? He says, Am Yisrael, pay attention. For me, Yirat Hashem is a small thing. It's not a big deal. It's pocket change. You admit to that. You know. For me, Moshe Rabbeinu, it's not such a big deal. Ma Hashem Elokecha shoel meimach. Hashem is asking of you the pocket change. Just like for me, Yirat Hashem is a small thing. Hashem is not asking from you big things. He's asking to do on the small things that you're able to do. That's what He demands of you. For me, Yirat Hashem is a small thing. But for you, on your level, whatever that small thing is, that is what Hashem wants from you. And not more than that. The Ma Hashem Elokecha Shoel Meimach is what HaKadosh Baruch Hu requires of you. Now, here comes the beautiful story of Rav Shlomo Miller said. He said a true story that happened in America. There was a person who was not religious in America, and he was doing pretty well for himself, business-wise. He was succeeding, and he was an expert painter. That was his profession. And, he heard from a Rav, a Darshan, he was Choser B'Tshuva. He came religious and he was fire. He wasn't like one of these people that were very passive. His Choser B'Tshuva is all the way. If this is the truth, it's all the way. He stopped what he was doing. He stopped working. He said, I'm going full-time, 100% Kolel life. That's it. He jumped straight in. Okay, fine. But Baruch Hashem, he had Rabbanim and he had everything. After a few weeks being in the Kollel, this person with a lot of fire, he wanted to be on the top very fast. He realized, sort of reality set in, that you don't just become a Talmid Chacham in 5 minutes. As gifted as you might be, as much as your potential might be, but you can't just become a Talmid Chacham. It became very apparent to him that there's a lot of different prerequisites and steps and learning. You can't just, okay, what do I need to learn? There's just so much. There's Gemara, there's Rashi, there's Tosfot, there's Chumash, there's Midrashim, there's Sifrei HaMusar, there's Hanhaga, there's Shimush Talmidei Chachamim. There's just so many elements to the Torah that it's not an overnight process. And he realized how daunting it was to actually become a legitimate on the top. And he was like an on the top type of guy. I'm either the best or I'm bust. So he wanted to drop out. Lemazalo, Baruch Hashem, he had an Admor, a Rebbe, that he was close with, and he decided, before I do anything, I'm going to consult with the Rebbe. So he went to the Rebbe, and he told the Rebbe his problem. He's like, look, I thought I was going to, succeed right away, jump right in, become a Talmid Chacham. I see the process is forever. It takes years upon years to become a Torah scholar. It doesn't take overnight. Rabbi Akiva, it took 24 years to develop 24,000 students the way he did. It doesn't happen in one day. So he says, I don't really see myself succeeding. I'm going to go back. I'm still going to be religious. I'm just going to go back to my old profession. So Rav looks at him and says, what was your old profession? He says, well, I was a painter. I was an expert painter, and I was doing a fabulous job. I was one of the best that there is in the business. So he says, tell me, I want to know, out of curiosity, how much on average would you get per painting? He says, on average, I paint about 7,000 a painting. Give or take, some a little bit more, some a little bit less. 7,000, that's a nice amount for a painting. It's pretty good. So the Rebbe looks at him and he says, not bad at all. Tell me, how do you decide what you're going to paint? What's your process? He says, Harav, what I do, if I want to paint a picture, I put my neshama in it. I go and I take myself to the scene. Let's say I want to paint a sort of landscape. I'll go there, I'll sit there for a good half hour, take it all in, take in the experience, take in the emotions, feel it, breathe it, record it in my memory, and from that I put it all onto the canvas. And that's what I paint. I paint that experience with all of the details and all of the tones of the heart. I put it into the painting, and then I finish the job. That's how I do it. So the Rav says, wow, that's actually pretty impressive. Yafeh me'od, very nice. Just out of curiosity again, imagine that same exact place if someone were to bring an expert photographer, like the most professional, with the best cameras, and he was to take a panoramic picture of that whole landscape that you just painted. How much money would we be able to get for the painting, for the picture? He says, the highest a picture like that would be, best quality camera, best photographer, maybe $100, $150. I look at him, I don't understand. The photographer is 1,000 times more accurate. Fine details, pixels, the level of intricacy, the level of perfection in the picture is so much more than your painting. I'm sure you acknowledge that. So how come he's only getting 150 max and you get 7,000 for your painting? He said to Marav, the picture is not even close to being the value of the painting, because the painting is totally an experience. It's an expression. It's the way that I felt that is put into the canvas, that the painter itself is experiencing and conveying over to the person. There's not a single photographer in the world that can match that experience and can display that and communicate over in a photography, and therefore it's not even close to the value. As the Rebbe looks at him, he says, exactly. That's the truth. And he's like, what do you mean exactly? I'm the one saying this to you. He says, but you're saying to me is that you want to be this Talmid Chacham. So imagine HaKadosh Baruch Hu would have given you a photographic memory, and you would have been the quickest learner in the world, and you would have been a Talmid Chacham. In 5 minutes, you would have known the whole entire Shas and everything else. You know how much they pay for that in Shamayim? Maybe 100, 150. In Shamayim, they don't pay for photographic memories. That's cheap. They pay for the experience. They want to see how you experience the Torah. The fact that you had to struggle, the fact that you breathed it in, the fact that you had to work, and that you had to be detailed, and you had to soak in the atmosphere, and then put it into a canvas. That's what they pay for in Shamayim. And you want to just be a Talmid Chacham overnight? That's cheap. That doesn't have value in Shamayim. And he heard the message behind that. I think it's such an incredible message. I realized it's the difference between people that learn and the people that learned. There's a completely different thing. I thought about it a little bit. I went back to my childhood. When I was a teenager, there was a thing called, everybody knows this, I'm sure, maybe the younger people don't, N64. You remember Nintendo 64s? With the cool controller and all the different games and everything else. Who remembers? Adults remember, for sure the adults remember. Maybe Roma, I don't know. Roma, do you know N64? I don't think you know what N64 is. But all the kids, you guys know N64?
Yeah.
Huh? You're missing out if you don't. Good. Nice. So imagine to yourself, right? Just take this as an example. Let's say you put an N64 in the living room. And a kid walks over to the N64 and he goes like this. He takes the controller, presses. He looks at the game, those card games. He looks at it. Interesting. And he puts it down. And he just starts staring at it. What would you say? Buddy, Habibi, wake up. That's not how an N64 works. You take this thing, you plug it in, you take the controller, you lock it at the screen, and you start playing. Go, shoot the basketball. Oh, that's it. He goes ahead and he shoots. What was that game? The one with the dude. GoldenEye. New GoldenEye. You remember that one?
James Bond?
Yeah, that one. I didn't like that one. My friends like that one. But I like the basketball games. But you gotta shoot, you gotta play. All of a sudden, it's a different person. This guy is looking at the game, he's investigating the game. The other guy's like this, he's involved, you see him, you can't even talk to him. What's the difference between the two people? He's analyzing. It's true, he's analyzing, he's not experiencing at all. There's no experience. There's not an experience whatsoever. Of course he's not going to enjoy it. He's going to walk out after 5 minutes. But you have that guy who's living it, he's immersed in it. It's a completely different story. The same thing's true for learning. A lot of times you see people coming in, they're like tourists. They come in, oh, yeah. Oh, that's a good point. Oh, there's a question. Oh, there's an answer. Oh, you can answer like that. But you see that they're not experiencing it. You see it's like they're looking at it and they're like just investigating. Oh, this looks nice. But it's the outside. You got to experience Torah. Hashem wants the experience. And a lot of times when you feel that experience, it's a completely different thing. I know this in two different ways. So sometimes, I have my own learning, Baruch Hashem, and I sit and I'm able to dissect and learn the Rishonim, learn the Achronim, ask questions, give answers. Sometimes I get stuck. Sometimes I don't have clarity and I have to work hard until I clarify. And eventually, after a long time that you get stuck on something, you finally find the light at the end of the tunnel, you find the path, you find the little point over here, and boom, the whole thing gets clarified and you start, answering this.